Your journey has been an interesting one up to here. You've questioned so much more than those around you. You've even questioned yourself as to how you could have grown into these thoughts. Am I crazy? When did I begin to think differently? Why do people in general appear so limited in their thought process? Rest assured, you are not alone. The world is slowly waking up to what you already know inside, yet can't quite verbalize. Welcome to the Spiritual Dope Podcast, the show that answers the questions you never even knew to ask, but needed the answers to. Questions about you, this world, the people in it. Most importantly, how do I proceed now moving forward? We don't claim to have all the answers, but we sure do love living in the question. Time for another hit of Spiritual Dope with your host, Brandon Henley. Let's get right into today's episode.
Hey there, Spiritual Dope. I am on here today with my special guest, Melissa Drake. And before I launch into even like the bio, right? Melissa, thanks for giving me a bio. That's not too long. That's always nice. Sometimes I get like a full book, and that's okay too. We met. We did like an Instagram thing together with Jeremy Snowden. So you and I connected through Jeremy Snowden, and we did like some Instagram work earlier this
challenge,
year, right? So I think that was the last time I did much work there too. So we connected through there, and it was really cool to connect and see you do your work, and as we all kind of got together to support each other and go through that Instagram challenge. So we met there, and so Melissa is the author of The Orgasmic Entrepreneur. Discover the sweet spot of love, sex, and business by simply being you. Sacred Medicine Integration, a companion journal supporting ceremonial medicine experiences and transcendence. Lessons from loving, living, and dancing. She's also a TEDx speaker with 25 years climbing the corporate ranks and a decade of entrepreneurial experience. Her TEDx talk, The Dance of Collaboration, presents fresh insights on the benefits of collectively beneficial collaborations. As the founder of Uncorked Influence, Melissa helps like-minded businesses and individuals find solutions and go further than they thought possible. You're right there. That's right there. The sacred integrations. Perfect. So Melissa, I look at us as like these conduits for universal energy. Call it whatever you want. So here you and I are, and when we get together on this podcast, we'll have a great conversation. But it's really for the benefit of the end user. They're going to have and listener. They're going to hear something that we're not even talking about, right? Like it's going to be a message that can only be delivered through you to them right now. What is that message?
Oh, wow. Well, I think the message is related to the conversation and the fact that it's all in the moment, and that different people bring up different perspectives of us, and how important it is to really figure out who it is we are and what we're here for, and how we can bring that power, and not necessarily power, but just that essence to help people, and to, as you said, be that conduit to help people advance in whatever that way is for them. And knowing that it's different for every single person.
Yeah, it's so great when you connect with different people. They see you in ways you probably
completely different. Yes,
you never imagine, right? You're like, wow, you that's what you saw, and you're like, all right, I'll take it, or whoa. But I think it also illustrates to you how versatile you actually are. You're like, wow, I never saw myself in that light, and here I am, and this is somebody else's perception of me. I never even thought, which I think is great. And then, who it is and what we are, and you shied away from power. And I think that we, especially in this space of like spirituality and, mind your P's and Q's, Buster.
Yes,
right?
You're right.
It's like,
you called
which word do you pick? And like, well, I mean power, but I don't mean power. I'm not sure if you're familiar with David Hawkins' Power versus Force book.
No, I haven't.
So
I'm familiar with him as a person, but not the book.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a dance, right? Of
yes,
which words make the right sense. But I think the essence of who you truly are is actually quite powerful, right? And once you tapped into that, like you're able to share it, and the essence of who you are is that power that's surging through you, that you are the conduit for, right?
Yes, all of us are. And
Right.
sometimes it's really hard to own that power. And when you get in these relationships and these conversations and people reflect that power to you and they say things like, well, this is who I thought you are. And you're like, huh, I didn't know that. And it's just, I love the continual opening, the continual process of figuring out who it is we are. Because I was a person who, before I was 43 years old, had no idea who I was. I simply did what was expected of me, what was told of me, what I thought others wanted me to be. And then suddenly I was like, oh, this is all a lie. And then just had to completely rebuild myself from the ground up at a, I would say, somewhat advanced age. And then I look at my son, who's 26, who never had that issue. He's just always been himself. And that was just a beautiful thing.
So it's interesting. I always kind of reflect on like the Bible for one reason, and that's like they always talk about like the 40 days of this, that, the other thing, and the age of 40, right? Give or take, something happens to us as humans, right? Do
Yes.
we blossom? Do we have self-realization? Do we have what do they call it? Existential crisis? Do we what something happens, right?
Yes.
And I think that we, as Alan Watts calls it, I think we're peopling, and we're peopling, and it's like we're at a stage where we don't recognize, but we recognize it like innately, right? So truthfully, we're like we connect with it. So you get to this spot where like you realize kind of everything's a lie, or it's not necessarily everything's a lie. It's like
it's not aligned with me.
It's no longer aligned with you, and like you can now, like, you realize you can make these choices
Yes.
that you weren't making before, right? It's kind of what it sounds like, and
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, and then you start to realize that, like, walk us through, like, even recognizing that space, like, was there something leading up to that for you?
Oh,
and
yes.
then what happened during that transition, right? Or what happened during that transformation?
Okay, so yeah, something definitely happened to me. A lot of things actually happened to me, and it wasn't until the universe hit me upside the head with a 2x4 that I finally woke up to it. Like, I spent a lot of time severely depressed, so much so that I rarely got out of bed. I lost both of my parents in the same year. My son went away to college. And then I got really, really sick with two really horrible concurrent illnesses. And then I was like, okay, so maybe it's time for me to do things a little differently. And I started, that's when I actually started dancing. And that's what helped bring me to life and understand what was going on in my world. And then I lost my corporate job after 25 years. And so I had like this perfect storm of really not so great things happen to me, but I call it the blessing that wasn't even in disguise, because suddenly I had a clean slate and I could make new choices and do what I wanted to do instead of what was expected or what I had always done. And so it was really a beautiful opening that didn't look or feel so beautiful at the time, but it was an awesome opportunity for me to just say, who am I? What am I here for? And what do I want to do? And when I lost my job, I was like, I want to write. I've always been a writer in some capacity. And I want to help end the stigma of mental illness. And that was my focus. And I have curated my life and my career around that focus. Had I not lost my job, I'm not sure that would have happened.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's always the case, right? Not always the case, but it's often the case where you're like, what do you mean my job of 25 years is gone? There's probably like a little bit of anger, a little bit of resentment, even with your parents passing too. Like,
yeah.
you guys, I still need you. Like, where do you think you're going?
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I felt
And
so young to be an orphan. I mean, I wasn't even 40 yet.
mm,
And to not have parents was a challenge.
yeah, and then all at the same time, you've got your son going to school too, which is like you've done this thing. You've probably identified with being this mother and being the
Hmm.
caregiver and all these things, and you have all these identities being ripped away.
They were, and they were also a distraction. Like they kept me from looking at who I was
Mm,
because I was codependently taking care of everyone else. And then suddenly all I had was me staring at myself in the mirror, being severely sick.
mm.
So it was an easy choice at that point.
Are you able to talk about the sickness, the illness? You don't have
It's
to either. That's cool. I mean,
it's kind of gross. Like two of the worst illnesses you could possibly have. One was related to my menstrual situation, and which cropped up out of nowhere. I had to have a full hysterectomy to rectify that, and the other
wow,
was a undiagnosed digestive disease that caused me to lose 110 pounds in 9 months.
wow. So I mean,
So
that's
those two combo, like those are two of the, just really yuck
sure,
things happening at the same time, and it really knocked me out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, you're like everything's just quite literally gone to shit. Like it's just like it was a big old
Yeah.
mess, right? Like you're like I don't even like my wife is always like she'll be like I couldn't possibly like she's like I couldn't possibly no not today. So I mean literally like this is like 9 months I'm sure of like I couldn't possibly, but like every day you kept getting back up and charging forth and kind of getting through it. To explain to me like this dancing, like what type of dancing is like are you doing in here that's helping you through this?
So I met some people online, and we just happened to like the same dance club, and we started going to this dance club. I started a group of women, and one of the things I notice is that when I'm dancing, I'm in my body, and I have spent so much of my time up here around and dissociated. So I didn't even realize it at the time that when I was dancing, I was grounding and I was being present. It's one of the few times where I'm actually present and in my body. And that was actually the healing modality. I thought it was dance. I thought it was the club, and it really isn't either of those things. It's presence. It's being embodied and just being in the moment. And so when I I lived in Iowa at the time, and so when I lived there, it was all about going to the club, and they're only open on the weekends and all that good stuff. And then when I moved to California, there's all sorts of new opportunities here. One being ecstatic dance, which is just where everyone's in their own little world doing whatever they're just moving, like literally moving, shaking your body, getting the energy out of your system. And that is such a powerful healing modality because you're obviously present, but you're also releasing the trauma and the stored up energy in your body at the same time. And that still is today one of the most advanced healing modalities that I have. And I've done nearly all of them, especially in California. There's so many fun things to do and try here.
Yeah, it's all available there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all available, and you like you said you're right outside of LA, so
Yep.
you've got access to the stars. Um, so talk to me a little bit about you got a couple books out, right? Talk to me about what you're writing, what you've written, and a little bit about what went into those.
Thank you. Sure. So the first book, Transcendence, I actually I started taking private dance lessons to learn how to be led because I like to kind of be in charge and be controlling sometimes. And so what I learned through that was that I, it was the best therapy I ever had. I'll just say that it was literally the best therapy I ever had. And I likened it to being led by the universe. Our life is one big dance with the universe. And so, what happens when the universe gives you a job loss after 25 years? How do you continue that dance with life? And how do you get up and flow? And just learning about the energy between dance partners and then bigger with God or the universe as your dance partner. What does that look like? And so the real theme of that book is allowing the universe to lead your dance with life. And when it doesn't look so great, how do you manage that? And then the next book that I wrote, and interestingly, the very day I uploaded Transcendence, I lost a very lucrative client. And so I had the opportunity then to test the theories, which is how am I going to let the universe lead this dance, which led me to the next book, The Orgasmic Entrepreneur, which started with a theory I had about data. I was listening to a podcast and this man was talking about data and how important it was and how it shows people how you care, and that he was very meticulous. He even referred to data as a love language. And I thought, I bet data geeks are the best lovers because they're always looking for the sweet spot. And growing up in direct mail, I know that even when you find the sweet spot, you never stop looking to improve your results. And so that's kind of how the idea for that one started. And it's really a look at the relationship between business and intimacy. But the final through line of that book is about being yourself in every aspect. So whether you're on a date or you're at lunch with a friend, you're with your family, or you're doing business, are you showing up as you? Are you being yourself? Are you being authentic? And are you being vulnerable? And that matters, that you know who you are, because if you don't know who you are, you can't show up as you. Mm. And one thing that's particularly important, I think, in today's world is that we all have this online persona. Mm-hmm. And does that match with who you are as a person? I had a client that I worked with for 5 years before I actually met them in person. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, you are the same person online as you are here in my presence. And like, right. That was my favorite compliment. Like, sure. That was just really, really powerful to me. And versus in the corporate world where I was one person at work, which is this highly productive, highly successful person. And then at home, I spent 7 years in bed. I literally went to work and then I came home and went to bed, and that's it. So there was zero integration of my life.
Well, and I liken that to the Matrix, right? There's Neo and Mr. Anderson, right? Mm-hmm. We have this book on you, Mr. Anderson. And, mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like you're this person, productive, mm-hmm. blah, 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 blah. Right. Generic, could be anybody. Generic. Right? Yes. You're a cog. You're a cog.
Yes.
And yes. You go in and you do good. And then like you go home and it's like you've got this.
Got nothing.
Well, you've got nothing, or you've got this whole other life that you really, really want. And mm-hmm. it's like never there. And so, yeah, that's powerful, right? But I love that you have this online presence that you're talking about, and being that person through and through everywhere you go.
Yeah.
I think, I'd love to hear your opinion on it. I think there's a time and a place to kind of, and maybe not, man, because we've done it for so long. This you got to be this person and go do that thing and you'll get these results, and like you go and you do it, but like maybe you do get the results, but what's the cost to you?
Right. So that's important.
Is there still a place for that? Do you feel like maybe you needed all that shit to get to where you are today?
100%. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but 100% I needed that shit. Because I think it's Oprah's quote that the universe will send you messages and, whispers. They start as a whisper. And if you don't listen, you ultimately get a scream. And I needed the scream to wake up.
Yeah.
So I definitely needed it. I don't regret it.
Did Oprah call you and tell you that? Like, hey,
no.
Melissa, listen. Hey, girl. Right.
No, she hasn't called me yet. Not yet. But the last book that I wrote that I'm really happy about, and I wrote it in collaboration with other people, is Sacred Medicine Integration. And that was something after I wrote the other two that I really kind of delved into plant medicine. And the thing about plant medicine is that you get some really beautiful insights, and you learn things about yourself and about the environment and about the collective consciousness. But if you don't take the time to sit with and integrate those things and actually take action on what you learn, it doesn't really matter. Like it just kind of goes in and out, and you get stuck in a loop. And my first medicine experience was combo, and we had a lot of people in one room.
What is that? I'm sorry. What is it?
I'm sorry. Combo is it's a frog poison, and they actually like pierce your skin. It's almost like a cigarette burn on your skin, and then they apply this combo, and it instantly drains your system. It's an energetic and physical purge, so you instantly start throwing up. Like it's
Fantastic.
just
Where can I get me some of that? No,
I know, exactly. Well, that's interesting. Who would sign up for this? And I'll tell you, the first day I was there, and we're going around the room, and everybody's talking about why they're there and why they signed up. And one of the gentlemen said, I'm doing this because a better me is better for everyone. And I thought, how cool is that? Like that there are people that are really willing to do this work so that they're better, not just for themselves and not because they want to manifest money or whatever, but to be better people.
Yeah.
And so it's it's a really great cleanse for your body, for your energy, for your mind, all of those things. And I've done Bufo as well, and psilocybin and those medicines.
You got that South California connection.
I do.
That South SoCal Connect.
I do.
So, I would love to, a couple things here, right? Let's hit on that for a second. I'm going through a book right now. Oh my God, I got to bend over. That's age for you. Book called Stop Fixing Yourself, right? And my question is this, right? And either way, it doesn't really matter. Are we trying to get better, or are we trying to discover the truth of who we are?
I think we're trying to discover the truth of who we are, but it's under the guise of getting better. Because and I'll tell you, I love the title of that book because I worked really hard at fixing myself for a couple of years, only to find out that I'm not really broken, that I'm fine. And
everybody
it's really
else is fucked up.
No. Everybody else is no, not at all.
Okay,
not at all. No, thank you for that. No. It's really more about accepting the parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily like, the dark, the shadow, the
shadow work,
the shameful. Yeah. So it's not wrong. It's not bad. It just needs to be integrated. It needs to be seen and heard and acknowledged and accepted.
Yeah.
It's not something I was like, oh, let's fix it in like a surgical team. Let's just get rid of it. And that's not how it works.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's super powerful to really accept yourself truly, wholly, and fully, so that you can operate at 100% versus like I'm not this 50%. This baggage is no good for me, right? But I'm hauling it everywhere I go, anyways.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's exhausting.
Let's talk about. I have never had frog poison. I've never Bufo. I don't know. Let's talk about like the differences. And I think what I would love to hear is what are you learning from these different plant medicines like differently, right? Like what's what are the set and settings? Let's get down into that because all right, we got frog poison. Which is like you're showing up to throw up.
Yes, you are showing up to throw up.
Bufo is what?
Is DMT.
What is it? DMT?
DMT, okay. Yeah.
Is that crystallized and you're smoking it, or is it something else? Okay, so that's like the 10-minute trip, businessman side.
It's about 20. Okay. Yeah, it's about 20.
10 to 20. Shrooms, so psilocybin. We don't want to call it shrooms because everybody's like up in arms these days. Oh no.
LSD, and as far as settings, go ahead.
LSD, mescaline.
Nope, not yet.
So they are on the to-do list. Got it.
I think so. If it presents itself, yes.
I'm sure that you're in South LA area, it will present itself. Um,
safely, and in a proper set and setting,
right,
which
right.
for me is always a ceremony.
So there's a woman I read her quite a few of her books, listened to them actually. Florence Scovel Shinn, right?
Yes, yes.
With grace and imperfect ways, right?
Hmm.
So there you go. All
Love
right.
that. Yes.
So yeah, walk me through. I guess like what are these ceremonies looking like, and what are you getting out of? What do you feel like? Which ones are having like the greatest impact on you? How are they helping you along the journey? Yada yada
Okay, so everyone is different.
yada.
Every ceremony is different. Every experience is different, and they all kind of work together. So when I do Bufo, it's combo first, and then they kind of go together. As far as what I'm learning, all sorts of things like a lot of first of all, the masculine feminine integration, being able to integrate those two sides of myself. And as with everything, it's a process. It's not a one and done kind of thing. It's you have the insights, you work through. I specifically designed questions to help journal what are the insights that you got from the medicine, and I have written just pages and pages every time I get out of ceremony. I spend the entire next day writing about what came up for me, what visions I had, how I felt, what the experience was like. There was a lot of information related to generational trauma. I even had some suspected repressed trauma come up as well. And just, you know, just spending time with myself, questioning what happened, and then really journaling on that and what that means. And I've had family members read my journals after ceremony, and one of my cousins who's read all of my books said, "I've never related to anything you've written more than this."
Mm.
Just because there was so much related to my family and the way that I grew up and how it impacted me. But I would say any kind of medicine, and I even have like, I'm really sensitive to medicine, so I even have an out of body experience when it comes to cannabis. Like I just have these crazy, crazy insights. But whenever I do medicine, for me personally, it's always like the files in my brain are shuffled, arranged, and perfectly stored, so much so that I can't stop laughing because I'm so grateful for it. Like
Mm.
all the bad stuff, the shitstorm that we talked about earlier, I'm like, oh, okay, I see now. I see how that's connected and how that led me here and how this connected me to that. And it's just this beauty that I can't unsee. And I just feel so together.
Mm.
I feel like everything makes sense when I do medicine.
Tell me, tell me a little bit about your corporate life. Like, what was your role there?
I had many, many rules. I started as a like a data entry clerk, a low level, and I worked up to being a director who reported to the CEO.
And this was in
My
a direct mail business.
insurance, actually, and so direct mail was a large part of that. Um, my last role with them was for 10 years. I did competitive intelligence and also partnerships. So that's in large part where my TEDx talk on collaboration came from.
Got it.
And yeah.
God, it's just always interesting, right, to see what's the approach to the experience of the plant medicine is, right? Like, so
Mm,
what and who were you before you entered the storm?
yes.
Right.
And I'll tell you that my son is the one who opened my mind to medicine in the first
Mm.
place.
Is that right?
When he was a youngster, younger than he should have been, he was telling me about these medicines or these plants and saying, you know, really important people have used them to open their minds.
Sure.
And they're really successful now. And I was like, huh. And I didn't judge him. I didn't get angry. I was just, I consider, I didn't even get high till I was 43 years old. So these were things that I never would have considered at all.
Right. Right. Well, and listen, it's interesting. I think that the headlines that are out there right now, eliminating some of the fear
Mhm.
behind, what we've been, taught up until like this point, drugs are bad, okay, type of thing. Now it's like, all right, well,
Drugs are bad.
what if
Plants
some
are a different story.
sure, like and not for nothing, like 90% of almost all the drugs that are out there are derived from some type of plant base. Like there's generally a plant that does like what that can do. um yeah, when you now you have this approach though where like these, again, plant medicine even kind of absolves like this other barrier, right? That drug, I'm not taking drugs, man. I'm not taking
Hmm.
this is plant medicine, y'all.
Right.
Right. Right. And so, which is great. I'd love to hear there's a couple, I'd love to hear sound. You said you had some generational trauma came up for you. I would love to understand, like, what was the setting and the space that was there for you, so that you could be safe, that you felt safe in that
Mm.
space through that. What's that
Absolutely.
like for
So it was actually just really beautiful and serendipitous the way that it worked out. I went to um, a ceremony and I ran into a woman who I just felt really compelled to talk to. And she happened to be there with her son, who was there. Um, he has the same name as my son and is the same age as my son.
you? Mm-hmm.
And he had been dealing with addiction and spent 5 years in the jungle learning these medicines.
Mm.
And so he was the person who administered them for me. And his mother was there and his father was there. So I also had, in addition to having this person with direct experience with the medicine, with the tribes, his family was there. And so it was almost like, not almost, it was like he was a by proxy for my son. She was my mom. He was my mom. So it was almost like a family constellation at the same time.
Right.
And it was in a private home. It was a private ceremony. It was very, very beautiful in the way that it was set, and the way that I was cared for, the way that I was loved. It was an amazing, amazing experience.
Yeah, because I think that that's really important to make sure that, not only do you have somebody that is well versed in what they're doing,
Yes,
right? Not just
yes,
somebody who's been like, I took shrooms like 5 times. I'm ready to, let's do this.
right,
Let's do this,
right,
y'all.
yes.
Everybody in, everybody in. We're
No,
going streaky.
no.
Um, and then have like, have that space created for you so that if, and I don't know, like if you had the generational trauma, like if there was a breakdown for you or not, right?
Oh, there
Like,
was lots of breakdowns. Yes.
right. So making sure that, like, I've heard of, I think, events where there's, it's almost like too many people, right, trying to
Oh,
go through
my
this
first
work.
one, there were 40 people in a room. It was way
Yeah.
too many people,
Yeah.
like way, way, way too much. But also, that's what caused me to write the book, because the shamans or the people delivering the medicine is their specialty,
Mm-hmm.
but there needs to be integration afterwards. So how do you help people with an integration and do it in a way that is feasible for everyone? And we even have a free download of the book with the questions for people to access so that they
Well, yeah,
can
let's
get
talk.
the
Let's
additional
talk about
support.
it, right? Like, I mean, integration. Agreed. I think that everybody's in agreement that integration is essential
Mhm.
to plant medicine experience.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about. Let's use your generational trauma one as an example. Like, how did you integrate some of those lessons in your life? What did you do to integrate the lessons that you took away from that?
So the workbook is designed to actually pull out those questions. There's a whole series of questions, and then a 30-day action plan. So the first thing for me for integration is just taking the time for myself to go through the questions, to spend all of that. And I've even used these questions for things like, I went on a wellness retreat last year where there was no medicine involved, but it was still really powerful. The experience was powerful enough that I needed to spend the time to integrate that. So just and because I'm a writer, journaling is what comes easy to me. If there are many ways to integrate, and then I also have a community that I talk to about and share the writings with and communicate with.
So what would an example, one or two examples be of those questions?
Well, let's just pull one up and see what comes up.
Sure.
So it's designed into there's before ceremony, and some of the questions are, what are you committed to and honoring through this medicine work? Pure intent means you believe it. What do you intend to shift through this work? What constructed limitations would you like to address through the medicine? A constructed limitation is like a limiting belief. It's something you believe that is not actually true. For example, believing I'm not good enough is limited. And in actuality, every single person is made of the same magic with the same potential as another. Therefore, this belief is constructed. So going into the ceremony, before you even go, what is it that you want to do? What do you want to curtail? What do you want to grow? What will you say when you achieve the healing you desire right now? And then my favorite ones right before. So that's when you sign up, because the ceremony begins when you sign up, right?
Right.
And then right before the medicine, you ask, what's the healing that you came for? What are you ready for? Speak to your higher self, your best friend, your soul. The energy is ready to support you. Help is available because you ask. What will you ask for?
Yeah.
So it's basically like a really intense intention setting. A lot of people will set intention before they do medicine, but just really delving into, and I will say that we wrote this after having completed a, I think it was about 14-week NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah.
So the questions were designed specifically to help make sure that the words, the beliefs, and the actions are all aligned.
Yeah, no, it's powerful to combine, all that psychology with this work, right?
Yes.
Not just it's just my higher self, man. We're cool, man.
Right.
It's like, hey, let's leverage some of what we've learned over the past 100 years, give or take, on like what's working and
Yes.
and how can we get in there and, I want to say it's not surgical with the mind, but it's still
kind of
like,
is.
Because you get in there and you're like, if you do this work before ceremony and you're really like, you do the work and then you get in there, ceremony is like atom bomb on that shit. It's like,
yes. And my belief, like what I really want to do is work with people to address because essentially we get what we believe, right? So if you go into ceremony believing that you're going to get the healing you need, believing that you're going to be helped, that you're going to be healed, guess what? You will be. Yeah. If you think it's just a pain, then that's what you're going to get. And so I ideally want to set up a system so that people are receiving treatment for their limiting beliefs first, so that they're set up and primed and ready for the healing to be really effective, like you said, to just drop a bomb on it and then have the most positive impact that you can.
Yeah, and so I love it. Definitely great stuff. You got to have doing that. I think ahead of time is primo.
Yes.
Good stuff. So, all right, I go in there. I do my pre-work. I'm geared up. I go in there. I have an amazing experience. What happens next? What do I do? Like, and by amazing experience, I'm like, I was in there. I was like a surgical commander. Like, my mind was my mind, and I owned it.
So for me, my amazing experience is rolling around on the ground and puking and screaming and crying and laughing and.
No, that is not mine. You can keep that one.
That is mine.
Sure, I'm not rolling around in vomit. That's a promise. I intend to keep. So you get to the amazing experience, whatever that means to you, and then what does the integration start to look like, right? So how do we start?
So number one is rest. Come home and rest, meditate, breathe, be present. I like to spend time in water, whether that's the pool or the hot tub or the ocean. grounding, walking barefoot on the earth is a beautiful thing. And then for me, I usually start the next day writing. I spend an entire day writing. And then the book is actually designed for every day because a lot of times, I mean, I'll get the bulk of what happens the next day, but a lot of times the insights don't come until days later or weeks later. And so just monitor. I'm a huge documentation freak, as you can imagine, as a writer. So just writing what came up for me, like, oh, okay, maybe this is related. And, you get these just little segments of insights over time and then just keeping track of them.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's interesting, so I always do my journaling online and I do a save as the prior version. And it's really interesting to see the growth because the questions are designed like you get all of this stuff out, right? You document everything. And then at the end, you nail like, what are the learnings you get? For me, it's like between 5 and 10 bullet points where I can really segment. These are the learnings that I got. And what's really interesting to see is from one journey to the next, how the learnings evolve over time and how I can tell I have learned from what I did last time, or this last one that I did after a mushroom journey was, okay, this is the same thing. Like I'm still in the same spot. Like I had the same learning, which is good because it's, it's a process and I'm learning more about that. But also this is an area where I need more exploration. And so we have a couple different versions of this book. This one is designed so that you can do 11 journeys in one book. So all of your stuff is in one place.
Should that be like once a month, take a month off? Like, I mean, what's that?
That's not for me to decide. that is not.
So yeah, I mean, is there a recommendation on like how long you
it's so individual.
Journeys? Yeah.
It's very individual. I would say that's up to the person and the shaman. Like for me personally, in 2 years' time, I've done maybe 10 journeys altogether.
What would you say, like a couple of things that you've learned that you don't feel like you would have learned without the assistance of plant medicine?
The number one thing is the ability to see how connected everything is and how amazingly supported we are by things known and not known, seen and not seen, felt and not felt. And just knowing that we're okay. And one of the things that I wrote many years ago after the first time I got high was the beautiful intention of every single thing. Like we think there's this conspiracy that everybody's out to get us. Mm. And it's really just the opposite. The conspiracy is everything's set up for us.
Yeah.
And everything's happening perfectly. That's the number one thing. Like I said, all the files are filing in my brain and I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. Even the mess is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a really good book on like a kind of chaos theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even like as chaos evolves and does its thing, it creates a beautiful pattern.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so I'm in. So it's like you get this knowing. What can I do with that?
Well, tell me what you mean by knowing. Like knowing you need to do medicine, or knowing from the medicine?
I'm in the medicine, and I feel amazingly supported. I know that, like I've got this support, and I have this knowing, this innate knowing. What does that do for me?
So for me personally, I move different when I know that I'm protected. I don't move in fear. I don't move with doubt. I don't move with hesitation. I move with grace. I move with ease. I move with understanding. I move knowing that I'm supported. It's like when a little kid is jumping off the edge of the pool and he knows his dad is going to catch him, he just runs and jumps in versus, oh my, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so you just move differently when you know.
No, that's perfect, right? And this space, this grace and ease and understanding, and the space of like this knowing, is that coming because you've been in the supportive environments to enhance like that through
100%.
ceremony? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. I think the medicine does part of that, but I will tell you the set and setting does as much, if not more. Just knowing the people that I was with, I could feel their hearts. I know they were there for me. I know they were supporting me. It wasn't about money. In fact, it was completely donation based, and they would have done it for free if I didn't have the money.
Right.
So just the people, the setting, that's huge.
No,
Absolutely.
that's awesome, right? And I think that's a big takeaway, right? I mean, grace, ease, and understanding translates really into uh, confidence, right?
Yes.
Translates
Yes.
into like moving forward, encouraged, right?
Yes.
So I love it. I love it. All right, well,
Yes.
cool. We are kind of at a spot which I like in these podcasts, unless it's a little bit to like spiritual speed dating,
I love
right?
that.
Somebody's gonna tune into this podcast. They're gonna be like, you know what, Melissa should be my next spiritual date, right?
I love
So
it.
in that vein, let me ask you a couple questions here. I need to come up with some new questions. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
All right, spiritual bachelorette number one.
No, no.
What is our greatest distraction?
Fear. Absolutely. Fear. For me personally, I know that it has been fear. I get caught up in what if it doesn't work out? What if when I move with the knowing, there is no distraction. There is only inspiration. There is only just being guided by my internal guidance system. And when I'm worried about fear or when I'm not present, I would say that's probably even a bigger distraction, which is fear based. If I'm not present, I'm either worried about the past or I'm worried about the future.
Mhm.
Um, and just looking at all of the shiny things instead of being like, wow, look how grateful I am for what I have
Yeah,
right now in this moment.
sure. Sure. I mean, that's a great one. Would you say, is it fear or doubt? Right.
Good distinction. They're not the same, um, but they're very similar, and I would say both.
Mhm.
Um, and I would also say that they're both limiting beliefs.
And I think this is an opportunity for, looking for faith of some type, right? Like you mentioned, I think way in the beginning of the story, you're like, all right, well, show me shit. All right,
Mm-hmm.
let's do this. I
Mm-hmm.
have faith. I don't know in what, but like, I've got this theory. Here's the thing. I believe that it's going to show up in this kind of manner, right?
Yes.
Um, okay. All right. Spiritual bachelorette number one. Who do. Why is there poverty and suffering in the world?
Because people don't know or understand their power, because they don't have that knowing, because they don't have the confidence, because they're they're afraid. And I will tell you that I've had my own poverty and my own suffering, and it's directly related to a lack of belief in myself and a lack of belief in the universe and a lack of belief in the people who support me. And
I think it's
when I
powerful, right?
tapped
Go ahead.
into that, when I'm tapped into that knowing,
Mhm.
suffering and poverty it doesn't even show up on my radar at all.
How does that look for someone who's in the middle of it, right? I think that's a real big
Yeah,
challenge.
it is a huge challenge.
So
So
if you yeah, like I mean, the question is like, what if you showed up and told yourself, hey, don't worry, everything's gonna be fine, while you were in this poverty and suffering state? What would you have said to yourself, right?
well, that's still the truth, even when I'm in that mess. Like when I lost my job and didn't have any idea what I was going to do, the truth is, and always will be, it's going to be fine.
Mm.
Sometimes we don't want to hear that,
Right.
but it is true. And I would say, like, when you're going through it, the best thing you can do is just have someone by your side to support you and to see you and witness you, not try to fix it or solve it, but just be there with you until you're ready to come out. And my son is an amazing example of that. Jeremy is an amazing example of that, of someone who just allows me to, because we kind of have to come to terms on our own time. No one can solve the problem for us. So just someone to witness what you're experiencing and allow that to unfold in the way that is best, because like I said earlier, it's rigged. We're going to make it. So, or we're not, and that's okay too. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Yeah, no. Listen. I'm all in, right? I'm all in, and sometimes I might give the universe a little. And here's the funny thing, right? You know, here we are. We're on a tiny little ball in the middle of like
mhm,
the universe. It's like perfectly suited for us to live, breathe, eat, and people. And we don't think, you know, and it never like, you know, never like, you never like wake up one day and be like, oh man, the earth is out of gas. Like
right.
I can't go to people today. My earth isn't ready. Right. Like, you know, it's always available.
Yep.
And you yourself, you pump blood, you create blood cells, you grow hair, you breathe in your sleep, and you do it all in your sleep without even like knowing
Without
what you're
thinking.
doing, and you don't trust that the universe kind of has your back to, like, I don't know, line you up with something that doesn't suck. And
Yeah.
that's on you, right? Like that's on you,
Yes.
because like, and again, like I think you
100%.
talked about, right? Like you will get what you look for,
Yes.
right? And so retraining yourself to look for those things, those
That's
other
it.
things, right?
It's the retraining. That's
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah.
and I will tell you, sometimes we're more comfortable in the mess because that's all we've known.
Well, yeah, the devil, you know, right? Like, you may have like this big shit show of a mess, but it's yours. You're
Right.
like, this is my shit show. I run this
I
bitch,
know how to
and
operate. Yes.
right. And so it's like, all right, well, you don't have to, you know, but like not the fear of something worse out there. There is something worse. Sure, there's always something worse out there, but like, you know, I don't know. You make your way through it. So great to have you on. One real quick question, right?
Yes.
Collaborative AF. What's happening behind me here? It's just like, so. I mean, what's on the board for those of you that are listening? She's, you know, got a board up behind her. It says, I'm gonna say it looks like Collaborative AF. So like, what am
You
I
are
looking at?
absolutely 100% right. So when I released my TEDx talk, which is about collaboration, I decided my business name was going to be Collaborative AF. So I
I
did
love it.
keep that for a couple of years, and then I transitioned to something else. So that's just my old branding that you're looking at, but it's
Just
still like
just
it's who I
collaborative
am.
now, not AF.
No, I'm absolutely Collaborative AF. My new business platform is Uncorked
Mm-hmm.
Influence, as
Yeah,
in not corporate, but having that corporate foundation.
yeah. So, you know, where can people go to find out more about that?
Uncorked Influence, UNCORPED influence.com. That's my Instagram handle and my website as well.
Who would you say is like your ideal like client? Like who should be reaching out to you?
So primarily, I work with authors to tell stories.
Okay.
And so anyone, literally everyone has a book in them. But it's not so much about writing the book. One thing that I have found is that writing a book is one of the best healing modalities available to mankind. You will find all of your stuff when you write about your book. And so I'm the person that's going to be that safe space to support you through that vulnerable share, and also package your book, edit it, and make sure that it looks beautiful and is ready for the world.
Awesome, Lisa. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you. It was very fun. I appreciated the conversation.
Really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spiritual Dope Podcast. Stay connected with us directly through spiritualdope.co. You can also join the discussion on Facebook, Spiritual Dope, and Instagram at spiritual_dope. If you would like to speak with us, send us an email through brandon@spiritualdope.co. And as always, thank you for cultivating your mindset and creating a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking part of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay fully up to date. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust your intuition.